Hey everyone, how's it going? Pixels here, and today I'm giving you my honest reaction to Killer Clowns from Outer Space and giving you my opinions on what I think about the game, if I'm going to pre-order it, if you should pre-order it. I'm going to give you all the information here pretty much from what we've known so far officially. There is some leaked footage out there. I have been doing a little bit of research. There's some leaked footage from Pooch Dog on YouTube, I believe, and Laughing actually did a good breakdown of his gameplay as well, so you can go check out those YouTube channels. I will try and link the videos in the description or in the comments for you guys to go and check those out. But in this video, I'm going to give you my positives and the negatives and just my overall feel for the game, and if I'm going to actually be covering it on this channel, to be honest, because that's probably the big question that people are wondering, if I'm actually going to cover the game, and we'll talk about that as we get into the video. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the game's release date. So it is out on the 4th of June. Not too far away at all, and you can actually pre-order now to get 1 week advanced early access. And there's a bunch of other pre-order bonuses that we'll get into, which is interesting. So for the price tag of the game right now, looking at it, for me, it just doesn't seem worth it, not gonna lie. You know, the standard is £33.49, which I believe is about $40 in the US. From the game itself and the gameplay I have seen so far, it does not warrant that price tag. And I'm basing this on past games that I've played, and sure, I'm a guy sitting here who's just spent £100 on Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, so maybe my opinion won't carry much weight in price in video games these days. But looking at the comparison to Evil Dead the game and TCM, this game doesn't look as polished as them. I mean, TCM wasn't as polished as Evil Dead, definitely not. And you know, these games seem to have the same similar price all the time because they're an ASIM multiplayer game and that's all they're focused on. However, I'd probably feel more inclined to pre-order this game if it was a little bit cheaper. I would, like, it's not to say that I'm broke or anything, it's just for the quality of the product, it just doesn't look like it warrants $40 or £35, and that's just for the standard. Now, the Deluxe is an extra $20 on top of that, so it's an extra $20 for the Deluxe edition, which is a total of $60, and it is £50 in the UK. So, looking at that, I'm like, this doesn't look worth £50 to me at all. But then again, like I said, I'm someone who bought Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League Digital Deluxe edition, which, you know, I mean, I got my money's worth out of that, but, you know, everyone knows what happens with that game. Okay, so let's talk about the bonuses you get for pre-ordering each version of the game. So, no matter what version you pre-order, you will get 1 week advanced early access, and to me, that is already a red flag for this game, which we'll talk about in a bit more detail in a minute once we get into the negatives. But also, you'll get 2 human cosmetics for the standard edition, which are going to be the shower ones. If you've seen them, that's when they're walking around in some towels and, you know, semi-naked, I guess, which is the camp style really from Friday the 13th, and this is an opinion from someone who never played much Friday the 13th. I watched some gameplay of Friday the 13th a lot, you know, I've watched Slash and Cast stream it a lot as well, which, you know, it looks like a fun game, and when I tried it out for myself on Xbox a couple of years ago, it just felt very janky and unfinished. Again, this is the worry that I have for this game, is the way I don't want to play in like an unfinished product again at launch and waiting for bugs to be smoothed out and, you know, the jankiness of gameplay. However, like I said, they are fitting the same vibe in this game that they did from Friday the 13th. So if you were a Friday the 13th fan, you'll probably enjoy getting this game. You also get 1 clown skin, which is a junksuit 1 out of 5, and you'll get 1 clown character slim. Now, this is a bit of a weird one, but we'll probably just leave it for the negatives part of this video that I want to talk about with these bonuses you get for picking up a certain edition in the game. Now let's talk about the Digital Deluxe content. So you get 2 human characters, you get Mike and Debbie, you get 2 clown skins, which is the junksuit 2 out of 5 and 3 out of 5. There's also 1 movie clown skin, which is Bibbo, and there's a digital soundtrack and a digital art book. And I don't know if all that really warrants spending an extra £20 or $20 on the game in particular. Now, let's talk about the positives coming from the game, because, you know, I'm not going to sit here and bash the game, be negative or anything like that. You know, there's still a part of me that is somewhat excited for the game, but, you know, I'm more skeptical than anything right now, coming from Evil Dead and TCM, that this game's really got to do something special to really swayed me into believing that it's going to be something awesome. So, looking at the positives, it looks like wacky fun, basically, you know. It's just There can also be a negative, weirdly, like if it's saying, you know, it looks like wacky fun, something you can probably sit there for 4 hours and just play and just have a good time with, which is, you know, totally fine. Sometimes that can be the downfall of a game as well, where people prefer having the competitive feel about it, like we did with DBD, Evil Dead, and TCM. Obviously, those games, you know, they're a little bit bigger in the ASIM space. At least, you know, DBD is, and TCM, Evil Dead obviously dropped off a bit, and sadly TCM's dropping off a little bit. Just due to obviously the lack of balancing and things, which is what happens when these games become competitive. Obviously, Behavior have been the only ones to really like keep on top of it and trying to keep rebalancing the game and to try and smoothing out the gameplay experience for everyone, whilst also dropping a lot of content in there. So, you know, it's only fair to talk about the other ASIM games, despite them all being playing a lot differently. You know, it's always fair to look at the market and being like, you know, does this hold a candle to Dead by Daylight at all, or, you know, the big dogs in the ASIM space? So, you know, sometimes I just feel like this genre can be quite doomed, and it's not really its fault, and sometimes it's more like it's focused so much around an IP or an indie studio where it just really struggles to get the content out there and to get the balance and updates out correctly, and obviously all the bug fixes that go along with it. So but anyways, like I said, the positives, it looks like a wacky fun game, and hopefully something that has a good grind to it. For another positive, it does have an 80s vibe to it, which really sings to me as a person, to be honest, because I love the 80s. Most of my Spotify soundtrack is from the 80s as well. You know, Stranger Things, all that stuff, Evil Dead 2, all the 80s horror movies. Like, I really got into all that stuff, and, you know, I think 80s is a way better setting for a video game. It can make it so gamey at the point where you can really enjoy it, and you can be more expressive with cosmetics, and the lighting on the map and stuff can always look really good, having the neon lights from the 80s and just making it feel really fantastic there. And, you know, looking at VHS, if anyone remembered that game, you know, that was all just flooded with the 80s stuff, but it was a bit too cartoony. I feel like that's why it just never worked. And, you know, the devs were, again, falling way short with the community. They were even hating on the community sometimes, and obviously that game just ultimately died. So, you know, it always depends on who's behind the game and what, and, you know, what dedication they have. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. Speaking of the dev behind the game, there's another positive with this game, is that we have a developer. I forget his name in particular, but he did work on Friday the 13th, and obviously it is published and developed by IllFonic and TerraVision Games. So the guy left IllFonic after Friday the 13th and went to make TerraVision Games, which is obviously making this game now. And obviously he's in charge, and what I've heard he's been doing, he's actually going to check out all the other ASIM games. He's been playing them, Evil Dead, TCM, Dead by Daylight, seeing what people really enjoy as a player base, so they get a better understanding of which direction to take the game in. So, you know, that's always a good positive to look out on, that it's someone that's got some experience and some knowledge in the ASIM space that's going to be working behind the scenes for this game. So it is something to somewhat get excited about. Now, you also have, you know, the gameplay effects just look really nice in the game. You know, graphic wise, it doesn't look fantastic, which we'll get into with the negatives a bit more, but, you know, the effects and the HUD and the layout looks pretty nice from what I've seen in the leaked gameplay there. So, you know, they did a good job again catching the 80s vibe with that. There's also going to be a lot of skins, which is a big positive for me. You know, playing these games sometimes, like, I want to bring up TCM really, you know, coming from TCM, playing that game and, you know, just struggling to play Hitchhiker because he's got one cosmetic, and, you know, you don't really count the bloody cosmetics for that. And, you know, just playing the same character over and over again, Cook, Hitchhiker, and they're just running the same cosmetic all the damn time. You just get bored of looking at it. You know, I always say variety is the spice of life. And when you can play a character in a video game and you can constantly keep changing up the cosmetic just to get a little bit of a change, you know, cosmetic isn't the be-all end-all in any means, but it's always something nice to play for in the game, and it's always a way to change up your gameplay experience sometimes. And that's why DVD is, again, so successful with it, because you can mix and match cosmetics. There's a bunch of cosmetics that drop in that game, and, you know, some of them are more well designed than others, but at the same time, you know, there's plenty to choose from, really match your personality and your style that you like to put on your character there. So it's always a big win to have a lot of cosmetics in the game, that's for sure. Also, the big positive for me is that it's a combat asim, and I really think that's a good one because I'm tired of these hide and seek ones. TCM was okay. It had a little bit of mixture of, I wouldn't really say combat, but you know, a way to fight them off. But in my eyes and in my opinion, Evil Dead the game has always been the best asim game because it offered combat and a way to engage much better and interact better with the other side. You feel like games sometimes with like Dead by Daylight, you can go through the whole game without even interacting with the power roll or the killer. And the same thing kind of happens with TCM. Sometimes you can literally get out of the map without even having to interact with the other side. So, you know, when you have those types of games, sometimes it just leads it to being really fast and boring gameplay. That's why I always believe combat ASIMs offer more. And it makes you a bit more active as a player rather than just sitting in one spot all the time trying to avoid the killer. So it's going to have obviously some little elements of PvP and PvE. So it's all mixed together. So it's a PvPvE game. So we're obviously going to have some things around the map that we're going to have to interact with as a human, or hopefully as a clown as well. So there's going to be some side things that we kind of do to build things up there. And it builds some bonuses up as we're playing. So hopefully, like I said, as a combat ASIM, it does a pretty good job with that. So that's got a really big thing going for it. On top of that, it's also going to have full crossplay. Now, I think that's very important. Playing Ghostbusters, which is an Ilphonic game, the crossplay on that is a headache to try and get to work. And I hope that the crossplay function is way better in this game. I pray to God it's not a code system because 2024, you know, we're paying $40 for a game. You know, sometimes you gotta balance it right. You know, you need to see like, all right, I'm paying more for the gameplay, or am I paying more for the features in the game? You know, you kind of need to balance that right. Evil Dead, again, I want to bring that up. $40 for the game, had full working crossplay friends list, and also graphically and everything looked fantastic and polished, and felt like it was made by AAA developers in terms of the animations and things that was going on with the game. Go to TCM, same price tag, and everything felt done on the cheap in terms of the features in that game. You know, crossplay codes, and then obviously the gameplay itself just was lacking polish in terms of trying to do anything on that game sometimes. So, you know, it's kind of like you need to find the perfect balance there. How can Evil Dead do all that, but you know, TCM can't? Will Killer Klowns have a full crossplay friends list? And that would again be a sort of defining factor for me if I will pick this game up or not. I mean, it's not a be-all end-all by any means, and you know, might be a little bit of a nitpick of mine, but as a streamer, as a content creator, you got to understand where I'm coming from when I'm trying to make a lobby and I've got to send out crossplay codes to people, or if people are in my stream watching, I get randoms joining in the stream as well, in which case then I've got to go to Discord while I'm streaming and then putting the code in and then trying to get people to join that way. It can be a bit of a headache doing all that. And you know, I feel like for that price tag, we should have this feature at as standard most of these days now, the way we have a full crossplay friends list, and just being able to hop online, seeing your friends online and just inviting them. Again, there might be some information out there about the crossplay in a bit more detail, but I have not figured that out yet. But if you do know, feel free to let me know down below in the comments section so I can get back to you on that. So that's the positives I have written down for the game so far. Again, not really too bad in terms of positives. You know, it's got some good things going for it. By the way, I just want to say anything that I'm saying here right now, just to really understand my opinion a bit more. I have not seen the movie Killer Klowns from Outer Space yet. Okay, so this is from an outsider looking in. Just know that, you know, I am an 80s horror fan and all that stuff, but I have not seen this movie, so I'm mainly giving my opinion from an ASIM gamer standpoint and going through those games for the last few years. So now I just want to talk about the negatives, which is really putting me off pre-ordering this game right now. So I mainly want to talk about the deceptive practices that seems to be happening with these games, and this game in particular as well. We've went so long without any information for this game. Obviously, when they announced the game, what was it, 2 years ago or something along those lines? I remember signing up for the alpha day one for the game, or the beta, and there was just a lot of silence going on. And then obviously they brought Ilphonic in. The game got delayed a bunch, and you know, here we are. And you know, two or 3 days ago, was it 3 days ago, at the IGN stream was when we actually finally got some gameplay. And this was when the red flag started with me. I saw the gameplay and I said, like I've been saying, it just looked really unfinished, it looked unpolished. And then obviously it's because it was alpha footage, and I don't know why we were being showcased alpha footage when the game is literally coming out in 4 months time. Surely they have something better cooked up than some alpha footage that they could have displayed to us. Again, I'm not really sure how game development works in terms of that, where they won't have a finalized product until 2 months before the game comes out. But you know, when they're displaying it as in-game alpha footage, and you know, you're looking at the time frame here and you're thinking, oh my god, like, then after that we are literally getting slapped with pre-order stuff after seeing just in-game alpha footage. And to me that just felt weird, and it felt off, and it just raised a bunch of red flags in my brain. I was like, I feel like I should avoid this, because it just feels like the same thing that we dealt with Evil Dead, and the same thing that we dealt with TCM, where it's all secrecy, it's all hush hush, and it's because it's an IP, I suppose. At the end of the day, it's a license. You know, they're going to probably be doing a closed alpha test where we're not going to be able to stream or showcase the game at all, or even talk about it. And you know, that doing those things sometimes can be a little bit worrying, and I'm kind of terrified, to be honest. I'm really scared about the launch of this game, and not to mention the pre-order bonus being 1 week and like of a whole early access, a whole damn week of early access on as a pre-order bonus. I don't know if that just feels desperate to me, or they're really trying to bring in some bank to fund the game a little bit more before it comes out. I just don't know. It just feels so wrong that we're getting a whole week of advanced early access. Now, Oldhead made a point that was on the anniversary of the movie coming out on the 28th of May, I guess. I'm not too sure about that. But again, you know, with these games and their early accesses, and you know, to be fair, you don't have to pay extra to get the early access in this game. Like most games, you have to do that for. But with this one, it feels weird, and you know, I'm not about to pre-order unless I can play the game for myself and say with confidence that I am happy to go and purchase this and play it day one of the early access, because then I believe that, you know, my early access time isn't going to be cut, and I'm also going to be able to actually play the game 1 week in advance. Because like I said, all these games come out, they offer this early access, and most of the time they break. And you know, sometimes you feel like you're just being there to be a server tester, which, you know, I suppose is a good thing from a developer standpoint, to get people to test their game before the global launch. But for me, honestly, it's another red flag for the game. So that's, you know, one of the big negatives that I have. The other one, again, I've talked about a few times, the animations just look way undercooked, with it being like in alpha footage that we've already seen in the game. The HUD also looks very clunky in terms of what we've seen in the leaked gameplay from the other YouTubers. Is that the HUD looks like there's a lot going on, a lot to understand. I like a nice clean HUD, and you know, like I said, the HUD does look great in terms of the 80s aesthetic to it. You know, it's sort of like a VHS 80s vibe to it. But you know, sometimes it feels like there's way too much going on the screen to really, you know, home in on what you want to do. So for the final negative that I have is that it is Illphonic. And the, you know, Illphonic is a very hit and miss company. If you look back at Predator Hunting Grounds and how they abandoned that game, and you know, just the graphics and everything feeling underpolished in that game was terrible. Then they got a big hit with Ghostbusters, to be honest, and you know, they did a pretty good job with that game in terms of keeping the player base active. You know, they're very active on the social media side of things, and you know, communicating with their player base. I believe they do a stream every 2 weeks as well. I'm not too sure about that, if they still do it, but they used to for Ghostbusters. However, it seems to be an Illphonic practice to where they want to literally, you know, put these characters and stuff hidden behind a paywall at launch so you get early access to those characters. They did that with Ghostbusters. I remember Ghostbusters when it first launched. I didn't buy it myself, but because we were doing Evil Dead at the time, and someone coming to my stream was telling me about Ghostbusters, and like everybody was pissed off because if you could only play as Slimer if you pre-ordered the game early or something along those lines. And I don't know if he was aware that you could unlock him later on into the game, but you know, it's just a bit of an off-putting thing to see that when you're starting to force people to pre-order a game just to get, you know, access to some cosmetics in terms of, or even characters, should I say, you know, to get access to the characters a little bit earlier than other people. It just gives me a bad feeling, to be honest. I have actually one more negative I want to talk about, and I think it's only fair to discuss this because it's a big problem with TCM, and that is going to be the lobbies with this game. So the lobbies being 10 players could be a problem with how small of a franchise Killer Klowns is, and then obviously it's just an indie game on top of that. A fucking full price indie game almost. And then, you know, it's gonna have 10-player lobbies, and that just screams like problems for me. It might not be too bad if there is bots. So Ghostbusters also has bots in the game. So it doesn't hurt too bad in terms of trying to actually play the game. However, when you start putting bots into an ASIM game, sometimes it can really take away the competitive feel to it, which is something that me personally enjoys sometimes, playing these ASIM games rather than it being the case of relying on and just messing around with bots. Because you know, that's something that I would do in a practice mode, you know, testing things out. I would be using bots for, not really to play competitively in the game. But you know, everyone's to each their own about what they like in a video game. Me personally, with ASIM games, I like to have a little bit of competitiveness mixed with my fun, so it's always crucial to get, you know, a little bit of both in there. And I just don't know if Killer Klowns will offer that. I feel like it might just be focusing more on the fun side of things, which is totally fine. However, it could lead to the game not really being something that I would main on this channel in terms of doing content for. And another common practice with these Ilphonic games in the ASIM space is that you only have the preferred role queuing going on with the game. So there is a chance where, you know, if you want to be a human player, you will end up being a clown player, and this again leads to it feeling more of a party fun type of game instead of, you know, one that if you want to main a particular side, especially if you're playing with a bunch of people. So if you have, like, you know, just a full team of 7 people, but, you know, only joins like 2 other people in the game, there's a chance that even one person from your team could end up being on the Killer Clown side. Which, I don't know, it leads to the game feeling a bit all over the place sometimes when I'm doing that. Because I didn't like that part in Ghostbusters, you know, I always queued up as a Ghostbuster, but sometimes, you know, one of my teammates would be forced to go and play as the ghost the next game, and then it would rotate us around, and it just felt like I was playing the game just... I mean, yeah, I was playing the game for fun, but that's why I don't stream Ghostbusters, honestly. It's not really something where I can sit there and, you know, main one side and to keep grinding for all the stuff on that side and then switch to the other side and start grinding through the stuff on that side. It's just like sometimes it's a random role pick, and I don't really like that about these games. So anyways, to wrap this video up, right now I am not pre-ordering this game. There's way too many deceptive things going on that I don't like with how silent they had been, and then all of a sudden drop this in-game pre-alpha footage gameplay and telling us to pre-order the game. And, you know, we still haven't had a lot of information about the game. And, you know, it seems like a lot of fluff that's going on right now. And, you know, I'm just putting it out there that I personally will not be pre-ordering until I get to play the game for myself and to get a feel for it and seeing how things are working and how the game plays out. You know, how long the matches are and stuff, and how it's going to work, and, you know, in terms of the combat and everything. And that's going to be a big decision for me. It is. And like I said, I'm not going to sit here and spend what I think is a bit too much money on a video game that looks, at the moment, undercooked. So we'll have to wait and see there. Now, I'm not going to sit here and discriminate anybody for liking this game or being hyped up for it. I'm just saying my honest opinions about how I feel. You know, coming from 3 ASIM games previously and doing a lot of content for both of those, I've got a lot of experience of what's been going on with these games, you know, even just behind the scenes, and sometimes things can look a bit cash grabby, and I'm not saying that's going to be the same for this game, but you know, I'm just holding myself back a little bit, and you know, there's other stuff coming out that I can really focus on and deal with instead of actually worrying about this game, and this game being the be-all end-all for my current situation in terms of doing content on my channel. So it's nice that I actually have a space and the freedom to move around a little bit now, so I'm not really too bothered what happens with this game. However, for me to pre-order it, they're going to have to do something a little bit better and showcase some actual things about the game properly, that rather than what we've seen so far. But anyways, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section below what I've said in this video. Are you going to be picking up the game? Are you going to be pre-ordering it? Are you avoiding this game like the plague? Do feel free to let me know down below, and hit that like button, hit that sub button. And I've been Pixels, my awesome viewers. I'll catch you guys in the next one.